Hey, everybody, it's Ron Johnson, and this is the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. I'm back. I'm back in town in Minneapolis, and I brought the heat with me, people. It is warm in Minnesota. I can't believe it. I expected to come back to something colder. But speaking of heating up, the NFL Combine starts this week. Player interviews. Kwesi have to hit the podium. Who are the Minnesota Vikings targeting? We'll talk about all that and much more coming up next on the Ron Johnson Show.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcasts. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. Now the Ron Johnson Show. On the field, in the broadcast booth, Ron Johnson is Minnesota sports. He's played with them, hung out with them, and grown up with all the big names in Minnesota sports. They're hanging out with Ron Johnson. It's the Ron Johnson Show on the Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. And it starts now.
Hey, everybody, it's Ron Johnson, and this is the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Yeah, for those that are new to the show, my name is Ron Johnson. I am a former NFL wide receiver. I played for the Baltimore Ravens. I went to the NFL Combine. I was drafted by the Baltimore Ravens, but I played here at the University of Minnesota, where I reside. But also, as a former player, I do a lot of this stuff, talking football, talking sports. I love some basketball. And hey, we're here every week. Locked On Sports Minnesota. We are thankful for the everydayers, those that continue to watch, share, like, download, tell a friend that we're here. We truly appreciate that. You guys help us continue to grow. And make sure you go to YouTube to subscribe. Go to YouTube, just hit that little subscribe button. Tell a friend about it, because as we grow, as the seasons go on, as the NFL draft comes up, we are going to have all the things that happen. We're going to talk about, is a player going to get released? Are the Vikings making room for a big move? Is J.J. McCarthy the answer for Minnesota Vikings? There's so much to talk about. But before we get to start in today's episode, we want to know it's brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets. That's $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. $5, people. That's all it is, $5. And I was just in Mexico. That's 100 pesos for those that want to bet. And you're traveling after this. $5 is 100 pesos. Just go ahead and put that little 100 pesos. Actually, is it more? Nope, it's 100 pesos. Put that on something simple. I mean, Timberwolves. I don't know if it's simple, but there's got to be one of the worst teams they're going to play at some point. And hopefully they'll play up and not down to their competition. And there you go. That's your $5 bet. You win. You get $150 to play with house money. Just make sure you visit FanDuel.com or just go to the app on your phone. Very simple. Well, as I bring my producer to the show, my co-host, my friend, Sam Ekstrom. Sam, it's NFL Combine week. And the Vikings. So I heard John Harbaugh this morning. I was dropping the kids off, as I do every morning. And listening to, our partner over there on NBC Peacock, Dan Patrick, and the back row, the boys, people calling in, talking about their 6'2", 250 pounds. Ding. That group, Sam. They had John Harbaugh on. Oh, wait, is it John or Jim? Jim, Michigan. Who's the Michigan coach?
Jim.
So the Chargers coach, Jim Harbaugh. And they had Jim on. And he talked about J.J. McCarthy, because that's his guy. And he talked about all the Harbaughisms. The I wake up, I forgot what he said. I wake up and attack every day with unbridled,
with an energy unknown to mankind, something like that.
Yep. And so he talked about that. He said, if you guys are, because we know Florio's a Minnesota guy, unfortunately, and he was talking about Florio and talking about the other stuff with Phil Simms, and they talked about basically just Harbaugh and J.J. McCarthy. And he talked about other stuff, of course. Herbert. He thanked every quarterback, honestly, that he had. And actually, you know what? It might not have been Dan Patrick. Dan Patrick came on next and talked about the Harbaugh interview. So maybe it was Florio first and Phil Simms. But Harbaugh brought up the quarterbacks. And he talked about Stanford. He had Luck. He had Josh Johnson in San Diego. He had J.J. McCarthy at Michigan. And then he had Herbert. And he said, you know what? He's like, man, of all those guys. Oh, he talked about Kaepernick with the 49ers. He had Alex Smith with the 49ers as well.
Yep.
So he gave a shout out to all his quarterbacks and said, you know what? There are no great coaches without great players. And I think that's the truth, because you can be the greatest coach in the world, but if your team is hot garbage or your quarterback is extra trash with a side of cheese, you are not going to be a great coach. Shout out to Tom Brady and Belichick. We know that answer. It was the chicken and the egg. Together, they were great, but let's be real. Brady moved on and still won a Super Bowl. Belichick has not been able to do the same. He is not the same guy without that Brady aura. You know, that guy running the team, leading them down the last minute. You look at the Eagles. Without Jalen Hurts, are they that good? Probably not. You look at the Chiefs without Mahomes, are they that good? Probably not. And so that's why so many GMs who made these draft picks, picked these quarterbacks, should get credit for that as well. You look at the Rams, got to a Super Bowl with Goff, won a Super Bowl with Stafford. It's about the players, but the players do need a play caller. They do need weapons. No quarterback can be great with a bunch of trashy receivers or a trashy tight end or a terrible offensive line. Remember the Patrick Mahomes offensive line issues when he was diving sideways because the offensive line was letting everybody get through? It was about the players and the team. And so when you're looking at this, first thing the Harbaugh said is, you know, what you just said, Sam. What is it again? The attack the day.
I'm getting it wrong, I'm sure. Attack the day with an energy unknown to mankind.
That sounds right. I'm pretty sure that's what I heard this morning. That sounds right. I couldn't remember. I thought I was gonna say like unbridled passion and energy, but I'm like, that's not it. I got that from somewhere else. But yeah, energy unknown, because he said that came from his dad. He said his dad used to pick him and his brother up for school or take them to school, and that's what he would tell them in the morning, like, how are you doing, Harbaughs? You know, we're going to attack the day with a energy unknown to mankind. You know, like, so basically that was ingrained in them as kids. I'm guessing John Harbaugh hasn't used it as much as Jim. Jim really loved it. John probably was like, oh my God, Dad, are you serious right now? Because my kids are like that. I try to talk to them in the morning and when I pick them up from school. And I know my 13-year-old, she rolls her eyes every once in a while. So I know there's things I talk about when I talk about sports with them. So hopefully one of them becomes the Jim Harbaugh and takes what I say and just grows and goes with it, or maybe later. Because Jim probably didn't love it when he was a kid, but then he got older. He's like, oh man, old man was right. I got to attack every day. And so anyway, he brings up J.J. McCarthy, and here's what he said. And that's where I go with this as far as the messages to Sam Darnold. They said, what are you looking forward to on the schedule this year? He said, well, I get to play my guy, J.J. McCarthy. And he's like, I'm going to be rooting for him, but you know what I'm really rooting for? A win. And so, again, tongue-in-cheek, we know Harbaugh, that's his guy. But it seems like all signs are starting to point towards J.J. McCarthy. Now, maybe J.J. McCarthy knows, and the coaches have told him, hey, just hold off on, you know, this whole QB1 talk. Just keep it to yourself. We got to figure out what we're going to do with Sam Darnold. We don't want to give anything away. You know, maybe they've invited him into these inside conversations. Maybe there's other things the team and he knows about himself, his injury, his leg, his comeback, that maybe they're like, look, we don't want to tell anybody anything. Sam, this is what's going on. We do want you back for a year or two. Are you willing to do this? We have no idea, but we know this stuff is behind the scenes. We know that the Vikings are doing a great job keeping it under wraps, because there's been no like Schefter tweets. There's been no leaks of it. Normally there's a like, all signs are pointing at the Vikings letting Sam Darnold walk, and you know, like there's been none of that from Schefter. Now, maybe after the combine, because again, this is when people drink and they hang out and they get chatty. We know that. But Sam, when you're looking at the combine and the Vikings message to Sam Darnold, in my mind, starting with that first topic, message to Sam Darnold, I feel like it's pointing to J.J. McCarthy, because there hasn't been any real talks of what they're going to do with Darnold, and it just feels like he's a chess piece. And the real chess piece they want to protect is J.J. McCarthy. I don't know. Where do you feel?
Yeah, this is where the rubber hit the road with Kirk Cousins, Ron, last year, where they showed up to the combine. And I think they wanted to bring Kirk back on a team-friendly deal.
Yep.
They had high hopes. And then they talked to people. And then they had the open bars at the steakhouses. And they realized that after talking through some cocktails, they were not going to get Kirk Cousins back because the market was just too expensive. And Atlanta had already tampered, and they had already figured out that they were going to sign him to a big 4-year deal. And I think the Vikings kind of played their hand and said, yeah, it's a competitive world out there. We're probably not going to get Kirk back. And I think the same is going to happen with Sam Darnold. I think that they're going to learn pretty quickly that there's one team, and all it takes is one team, Ron, that's going to give Sam Darnold that big time money. And the Vikings they're not going to match that. I don't think they're willing to sacrifice so many years and so many dollars to Darnold when they have J.J. McCarthy waiting in the wings. I think that we're going to get indications from Indy that it's McCarthy's team. That's my gut. And I think this is also a chance, Ron, to figure out a tag and trade partner, someone that you could trade Darnold to if you tag him. I think this is a good opportunity to negotiate, with some shrimp cocktail and some steak and some wine to figure all those details out in a kind of a comfortable environment.
Yeah, and you're dead on with that. This is when these conversations happen. We've seen that, like the Senior Bowl. I think, what was the Senior Bowl? Was that the Saquon Barkley one where they talked about they were at the Senior Bowl talking, and that came up of how they were going to handle that. Who was the other one? There was another one that the Panthers did with their guy, the backer. He went to the Giants. Who was that?
In free agency or a trade?
It was either free. It was either free agent or a trade. I thought it was like the trade from the Panthers to the Giants. It was a backer. It was like their guy. It was like one of their top backers for the Panthers.
Norman, like back in the day.
No, it was like more recent than that. I'm drawing a blank on his name, but I remember that came up. I thought that's who it was. It was the Panthers Giants trade. Because the conversation was on like one of those mic'd up things where they were like, "Oh, this is when we said we were going to trade him." And blah blah blah. Burns. It was the Giants obtained outside linebacker Brian Burns in a trade with the Panthers. The 2024 draft pick choice, number 39, and 2025 fifth round choice, agreeing to swap fifth rounders, getting the Giants. And this was back in March 14th, 2024. So this was like right after the combine. So it happened. I think that's what they said. And the Giants landed Brian Burns. And this was like at the combine. When they said it happened, because I remember one of the GMs, maybe it was the Giants GM, because did the Giants do Hard Knocks? Is that who did it?
Yeah, and that's where the Giants got embarrassed
with the Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, Saquon Barkley hotline.
And that's what I was thinking. So I remember seeing that. So that was the first conversation to this, making them sound great. He was like, "Man, we were at dinner or something. We were at something," and I was like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" He's like, "I'm trading Brian Burns. Who would you give up for this? Or what would you give up for this?" And he was like, "I got Brian Burns." Like it was one of those like pat me on the back guys. I just did this. And then you let Saquon Barkley go and you cut Daniel Jones and you started the DeVito kid. I mean, like you lost all credibility. Great job getting Brian Burns, but you screwed it up. But to my point, those type of conversations and those type of things happen. So for the Minnesota Vikings, I think the conversations are going to probably be, hey, if we were to like, who needs a quarterback? And some people get drunk and joke about it. Like they'll get drunk and be comfortable around a bunch of like NFL execs, and you might hear somebody across the room say, "Who needs a quarterback?" And then all of a sudden somebody walks over from the Raiders. Hey, we do, and we don't know if we want Shador. We don't know if we want Cam Ward. Pete Carroll's old. He likes Sam Darnold. What could you do? Here's what I can do for you, man. I can do X, Y, and Z. The Steelers, the Giants. Like there's a lot of teams that need a quarterback. If the Giants want to save face, that's who the Vikings need to be talking to, because the Giants could save a lot of face if they get a Sam Darnold in there with the young core of athletes on that offensive side, and Sam Darnold can come in and make that kid really, really good. The receiver he's out of LSU, right? Wasn't he the LSU guy?
Malik Neighbors.
Yep, Malik Neighbors. And so you look at that. I mean, they don't have a running back anymore. But now here's the funny thing. Imagine if they had done the right thing. Cut Daniel Jones, let him walk, sign Saquon Barkley to a big deal, and then they were to get Sam Darnold with Saquon Barkley and Malik Neighbors. That would have made the Giants look great. But it's not going to happen. But what I think with the Vikings, the message they're sending to Sam Darnold is that it sounds like, because it's really, really quiet. And there's been no chatter other than J.J. McCarthy's healthy. J.J. McCarthy's healthy. J.J. McCarthy. Like the Vikings also are calculated. They're not going to let J.J. McCarthy do these interviews if they don't have a plan for it. You know what I mean? Like, because the PR could easily say, nah, let's dial it back on some of these interviews.
Right.
No, they're putting them out there. Hey, go do Dan Patrick. Go do who was the big one he did? Was that wasn't Dan Patrick, was it, or was it?
He definitely did Dan, but I think you're right. He did another one. I can't remember who, but he's been doing the rounds.
Yeah. And
right.
So when you think about that, like JJ McCarthy doing these rounds, but that's what when Harbaugh said that, and he also talked about like JJ McCarthy being really, really good. JJ McCarthy having the ability to escape the pocket, well coached under him, under his tutelage. Like it sounds like Kevin O'Connell wants to do what a lot of teams do. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs build around a quarterback that's young, not a lot of money. So now I can put money into my interior offensive line, into my interior defensive line, into my cornerbacks, and try to run it for 3 years and see where they get. Because you already wasted 1 year with JJ McCarthy injured. You got 3 more years before your your first round pick has the 5-year option. Are you going to pick up his 5th-year option? Are you going to do the Giants thing and offer him a deal after 3 to 4 years because he wants it? That's where the Vikings are. They have a 3-year window. Usually is what you get with your quarterbacks, because Patrick Mahomes, all these guys, seems like after 3 years, they all start getting itchy and I'm the starter. Like, I need to make more money. After 3 years, the Vikings need to be able to look up and say, we made it to a Super Bowl, or JJ McCarthy's not our guy. Or at least we made it to the NFC Championship game. Or JJ McCarthy's not our guy. And we're going to be looking at some freshman right now that nobody knows about, that's on somebody's team, that in 3 years will be ready to enter the draft, because that's the next Vikings quarterback. We don't know. He's some freshman on somebody's college team right now that's potentially going to leave after his junior year, or maybe the next, or the Vikings are good and JJ McCarthy is the future and he, becomes a staple in the Purple Ring of Honor, which we'll talk about that at some point today. We're going to talk about Purple Ring of Honor players on the current roster. But Sam, the other side of this talk, and I want to get your thoughts on this.
Mm-hmm.
KLC and Kwesi, we know they're very, again, calculated in their speak. The messages they throw out, everybody, wants to decode the message. Did you hear how KLC talked about the future of the defensive line? Did you hear about how KLC talked about the future of Brian Flores? Like that tells us Brian Flores is about to get paid $5 million a year, whatever. What do you think the messages are going to be from those two this week at the Combine?
Yeah, I think we're going to hear a lot about the quarterbacks, because all the national folks are going to ask, right? So that's going to be topic A.
Yep.
Trickling down from that, I think there's going to be a lot of questions about, all right, you've won a lot of games, Kevin and Kwesi. You've won a lot of regular season games. You haven't broken through in the playoffs. How are you going to make that happen? And I think there's going to be some pressure on Kwesi in the draft, building depth, right? Developing a pipeline of young talent that he has not done a great job of. And this is prime draft evaluation at the Combine. So that's going to come up a lot. And we're going to hear about from Kevin how he's going to operate differently to make this team a playoff winner, not just a regular season winner, but what needs to change. So I want to hear what he says. Is he going to go back to, we got to boost up that interior offensive line? Or is he going to go defense? Is he going to say, we've got to boost up our interior defensive line? We've got to get, upgrade at cornerback. That's what I want to hear from Kevin as to like what he identifies as the key for this team moving forward to take the next step.
Well, we are going to talk about Purple Ring of Honor guys, but also want to talk about in the next segment a couple Combine draft picks that I think the Vikings could focus on. We'll do that for about 5 or 10 minutes. Do a quick talk about some Purple Ring of Honor guys, and we're going to get to the Daily 3. That's 3 questions, about 3 minutes each today. But we got to pay some bills, so we'll be back after a word from our sponsors.
We are brought to you today by FanDuel Sportsbook. It is America's #1 sportsbook for a reason, and the NBA is back in full swing after the All-Star break, which means you can bet pretty much every night before the game or during the game. Yes, FanDuel offers live wagering options. You can take the player props live. You can take the live spread, the live money line, the live over-under, all available to you at FanDuel. You can even cobble together a live same-game parlay for bigger payouts at FanDuel. Plus, NHL getting back in action, college basketball, conference tournaments, and March Madness around the corner. Wouldn't be bad to have $150 in bonus bets via FanDuel. And you can get that if you're a new customer. Win your first $5 bet, get $150. Bet 5, get $150 if that first $5 bet wins at FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Well, yeah, Sam, I think, for the next couple weeks, I'm going to, I don't want to jump all over the place. We are going to talk about Purple Ring of Honor guys. But before we get to that, we got to talk about guys that they're going to add to the team, Sam. And I'm going to be really quick with this one.
Okay.
I did a little bit of looking, and we've talked about where we think they need help. Cornerback, and I'm going with defensive line. I think, and offensive line, of course, we know that. That's always an answer. But every year, we've had Randall McDaniel on, and he talked about how hard it is for an offensive guard to walk into the NFL and be a guy. And so when I look at the guys, when I look at cornerback, of course, it's funny. And I don't know if you looked at this. As far as cornerbacks, they have Will Johnson ranked as the number one. Now, people are like, wait a minute, what about Travis Hunter? Well, the problem with Travis Hunter is he is just on the board as number one. Like, I don't know if you've looked at that for CBS. He is on the board. So ESPN, all these pundits, a lot of people have Travis Hunter. If you just put in all, it's Travis Hunter because he's a receiver and DB.
Number one player, best player available. You're saying.
Just best player available. But when you put in receiver, it doesn't list them. It gives you a bunch of guys. When you put in cornerback, true cornerback, it lists Will Johnson, Benjamin Morrison, and Jahdae Barron from Texas. So it doesn't list Travis Hunter because I think they're just saying, look, he's the guy, but he is hard to put him in a specific ranking because he's not a receiver truly, and he's not a corner truly in people's minds. People think Will Johnson is a generational talent, and anybody looking for a corner that takes Travis Hunter over him is gonna like hate themselves later. I personally agree. Like watching Will Johnson play corner and watching Travis Hunter, I think Travis Hunter is a great athlete. I think Deion Sanders set that defense up to be great. I think they put him in the best position possible to shine and win a Heisman. But when I want somebody just to play corner and lock somebody down, it's Will Johnson out of Michigan. I watched him. We talked about him on this show. I broke film down on him when we did the Gophers show, pregame show. Like, that kid is good. All season he showed it. He showed his footwork, his ability, his strength. I don't know if there's a corner in this group, though, where the Vikings need to jump. Like, because there's nobody they can get in this group that I feel like they can jump. I think they need to let somebody fall to them, like Denzel Burke, out of Ohio State, which could be a late round guy, 70th rank. And the reason being, he's 6'1", 200 pounds, Sam. So when I'm thinking about like Flores' defense and how he plays it, how he likes to have guys out there. Now, there is a guy out of East Carolina, which kind of reminds me a little bit of Terrion Arnold. Oh, sorry, not Terrion Arnold. The other kid out of Toledo before, who got his
Quinyon Mitchell.
Quinyon Mitchell.
Yeah.
This kid out of East Carolina, 6'3", 200 pounds, 193, but 6'3", 200 pounds. So he's my size, playing corner, skinnier than me, but 6'3". Again, long, can play cover two, can play robber. So you know how Brian Flores likes to play that cover two, and then that corner drops back, and if you try to throw that corner over his head, he can knock it down. At 6'3", you get that out of the kid like that. They have him as a late first round, so 32nd pick overall, where that could fall to the Vikings. Could be a guy they go get. Now, here's where I get real interested in this, and I'm very partial, and unfortunately, sorry people, I watch a ton of Big Ten football. I'm a Big Ten guy. When I'm looking at interior defensive line, we know Mason Graham is number one out of Michigan, 326'3".
Mm-hmm.
Great size, what you're looking for. If I'm looking at size, give me, there's three guys. 29th overall, Oregon, Derek Harmon, 6'5", 310. Kenneth Grant. Now, here's the thing about Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. Was it that he was good because of Mason Graham, and Mason Graham was getting a lot of looks, and so Kenneth Grant got to get free? But 6'3", 340, Sam.
Huge. Dude.
So when you're talking about a cock nose, a guy in a 3-4 defense that can eat up multiple guys, He is the guy in a 3-4 defense that can eat up 2 guys every single time. And if you single him up, he's strong enough to push through. That's why I like Kenneth Grant. He's considered a first round talent, 6'3", 340. So if that's a guy that falls to Minnesota and you want your guy, go get him at 20 something. Huge 340, 6'3". And then also, again, I'm a Big Ten guy. If you go down to round 2, Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State, again, 6'3", 330. You see the trend I'm going here. I want big beef eaters in a 3-4. Guys that are 330 plus, 345. I mean, there's another big one. I haven't watched any film on him because he's at Kentucky, and I might have to watch that. But another guy out of Kentucky is Deion Walker, 6'6", 345. So again,
wow.
The only thing I worry about that is the 6'6" too tall for a nose, because a nose you want to be low and push. And 6'3", 340 feels like a bowling ball. Feels like impossible to move. When you think about who's the kid that they got out of for the Ravens that the Vikings never really got to use?
Michael Pierce.
Michael Pierce. And when I watched him this year, he looked good. Like, it was so annoying that he never actually panned out for the Vikings because he was good for the Ravens. Yeah. Like, he had an interception in the game. Like, he was good. He was strong. He was solid. He ate up 2 guys. I really wish, because I know COVID was part of it and some other stuff, but I really wish he had played for the Vikings and got a chance to show what he could do, because that kid is good. And so that's what I'm looking at. Saying when I'm looking at this 3-4 defense, if you truly want a guy, 290, 300, I don't feel like that's going to get it. Give me 340. Make it impossible for a 310-pound center to push me. Make it impossible for a 310-pound guard to push me. You need 600 pounds of beef to push me, and that's what I want. Give me a 345, a 330, a 340, one of those guys in the first round at D-line, because that feels like, you know what? I don't need you to be great. I don't need you to get sacks. I need you to just eat up space for Ivan Pace and Blake Cashman to run free and not get touched by guards on their side. So if there's a run outside zone left, you're going to eat up that guard and he can't go to the second level, or you're going to eat up that center and he can't go to the second level. So people understand the combo block of the nose guard. Center guard go left, they take them that way. Center guard go right, they take them that way. One guy posts, one guy hits. The post guy is literally just holding him up for the guy that actually supposed to take him. And then once the guy takes him, there's conversation. Like, if you ever, I wish they would mic up D lineman, but it's probably I know Harrison Phillips has been mic'd up, but they don't give you all the in-game stuff. But you're literally hearing guys say, got it. And he's saying, I got him. Not Harrison Phillips, the other way, offensive line, to mic up Bradbury or mic up Dalton Reisner. It's tough sometimes to get some of that conversation, but I think they did mic up Dalton Reisner. And if you listen back, there's a lot of that. Like, they're screaming about the double team. They're talking about who they're getting. Also, I know coaches are a little bit like, I don't want this on tape because I don't want them to hear what he's actually saying. And I don't want anybody to know what our calls are when we're calling the double. But that's what you need. You need a center guard to have to talk every single time, because your nose guard is just so big that if one guy gets him, he's pushing that guy into the backfield and pushing him in the quarterback's lap. You watch the Eagles and their D tackles, they destroyed the Chiefs front line. And that's why I feel like that would be my guy. I don't know. Is there any guys you look at in the draft right now for prospects? But those are the guys. Again, I'm partial to Big Ten guys, but also I looked at size. Those are the guys I like in the D line.
Well, big fan of your plan to just get really big on that interior. Imagine a defensive line of, and I'm including the outside linebackers here, Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel on the edges, Dallas Turner mixing in. Then you've got Harrison Phillips. He's the stalwart. You still have him. Get a big rookie like Kenneth Grant, and then go sign one of the really good pass rushing defensive tackles like a Milton Williams or an Osa or Digazua. Someone that'll rush the passer. Kenneth Grant can stop the run. Harrison Phillips can do a little bit of both. That is a formidable defensive line. So I wouldn't mind just pouring all your resources into that, going all in, having a Philadelphia Eagles-like defensive line, which I think everybody saw what they did in the Super Bowl. And then at cornerback, I'm hoping that Benjamin Morrison's available. at 24 if you want to go that route.
Okay.
I think if he tests well at the combine, I think he's going to go too high. I don't think he'll fall because he has to prove that he's better after his hip injury. He missed half the season with a hip. If he proves that he's good to go and puts up really good numbers, I bet he's gone. I bet he's off the board. But that would be a really good first-round cornerback to go after. But at some point, Ron, whether it's, first-round pick corner, third-round pick defensive tackle, or vice versa, I want those two positions addressed early in this draft because you need talent at both.
Yeah, and again, even like for people to look at names, again, I'm a Big Ten guy. I look at Michigan. When you're a champion, who are the guys in the draft that they have that can make your team better? If you're Ohio State, your guys are on the national stage a lot. Denzel Burke, corner out of Ohio State, 6'1", 200 pounds. He could be a second, third round pick guy. That's another guy. Like if you're going to go get one in the first and Benjamin Morrison, you can still go get one in the second or third. The other question mark, and here's the thing. Like you said, if Benjamin Morrison is gone and there's not a guy in the first round you like a corner, if one of those other guys is gone and there's not a D tackle you like in the first, you can trade that first for maybe, hopefully, a second and a third. You can say, hey, I got 23. You can move it to 23. Give me your second round pick that's 34, 35, and give me your third round pick in that same spot. Now you have a formidable option in the second round to still get a guy like Denzel Burke, to still go get a guy like Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State. I mean, we joked about the Eagles getting so many Georgia guys. Why not go get a bunch of Ohio State and Michigan guys? Like those were the best teams in the Big Ten. Why not go do it? They have the weapons. And so that's what I'm interested to see, like how the Vikings take this. Like we know the draft is a crapshoot. It's also like, and you know this, Sam, when we talk about picks, like last year, I think Luke Braun asked me, and I got it right with the kid out of Oregon.
Kyrie Jackson. Yep.
Kyrie Jackson, which rest in peace to Kyrie Jackson. It's all about watching the film, and that's what I do. I do work for the Vikings on Vikings.com. So eventually I'll get some names, I'll get some positions, I'll watch some film, and then I'll start like looking at guys that I like because they don't want me to give what they like. They already know what their scouts like. They're like, hey, when you watch this, who do you like? And Kyrie Jackson, honestly, I'm sad that he never got a chance to play. Also sad he lost his life. Who cares if he never got to play football again? Like he lost his life, and that's the tough thing about this. But he fit in that zone scheme. Like he fit in that, like, show me man, go play cover two. Show me cover two, go play man, because that's what Oregon did. A lot of his interceptions were disguised, where he was lined up on a guy in the slot. He ran like he was chasing, and then he just stopped. And he was the middle guy to like a quarters defense. Like it was crazy where he was ended up at with Oregon. I don't even understand half the stuff Oregon did. It worked up until they ran into a juggernaut and they couldn't stop the run. Like that's where Oregon fell flat. And that's why I'm saying, like, look at Ohio State's running back. If you're the Vikings, because we didn't even talk about running backs. I don't think there's a true, like, there's some names out like Ashton Jeanty, not going to be there. Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. We played him with the Gophers. I like him. But there's a guy other than Travion Henderson, Omarion Hampton. If he's there, I like the kid out of Iowa, Sam. I mean, Caleb Johnson is 6 feet, 225 pounds. He is a monster of a human being. And he ran the now question
talk
is
about killing the Gophers. Speaking of
Caleb
Johnson.
But the question is, did he get run into the ground though? Did Iowa use him too much? Because we know they couldn't throw and they ran the ball a lot. But look at some Iowa guys on big stage, Cooper DeJean, blah, blah. Like, I would not mind a Caleb Johnson because I know personally out of the Big Ten, that's the one conference that continues to have good running backs and good offensive linemen. And so if Iowa ran the ball against the best of the best, and that's all they did, again, we talked about running backs. If the Vikings were to get, because last time on the football party, we talked about Travion Henderson. I would take Caleb Johnson over Travion Henderson. And the reason is because Caleb Johnson created a lot. Travion Henderson was more of like a screen game guy, and maybe that fits. But Caleb Johnson was a hit the hole, find the hole, get to the spot guy. Like he was a guy by himself. He didn't need a lot of gimmicks. He didn't need double reverses and screens and all. He give me the ball and watch me work. And he was a monster. He fell forward more than not. He didn't lose yards. He wasn't looking for the big play. And he's a home run hitter. So that's another one that I like. But we got to get to this Purple Ring of Honor conversation, Sam, because we talked about the guys the Vikings could bring in. Here's the guys they have. And I'm going to throw out a name. And maybe I'm a homer. Maybe it's because I'm partial. Maybe it's because he's been on the show. I feel like CJ Ham is a Purple Ring of Honor guy. Like, he is a guy, a staple, because oftentimes we think it's stats, and it is stats. And what's his name? Is Klein Saucer? He's in the Ring of Honor, isn't he?
I am going to check that right now.
Because I know he's been on our show. So he's been on the pregame show. And maybe he just came on our show just to come on. But I know, like, we had Jared Allen on the show when he was in the Purple Ring of Honor. We've had Ahmad Rashad on the show when he was in the Purple Ring of Honor on the pregame show. So I couldn't remember if Klein Saucer was in. Maybe he's not, though. Maybe he's not. But I feel like, I don't know, and maybe I'm impartial. I just feel like CJ Ham is such a great special teamer, such a great captain. I feel like when he retires eventually from the Minnesota Vikings, I could see the owners really doing him a solid. Like, he's a fan favorite. He's a Minnesota kid. I think they put him in. I mean, there's another guy. He's not.
Kleinsasser is not, by the way. Kleinsasser is not.
So that's the only thing that's tough for me, because Jim Kleinsasser did work. But I just feel like CJ Ham has captivated and maybe it's the social media side of football right now. But I feel like CJ Ham is a Purple Ring of Honor guy because of everything in the community. Like, everything he represents is Minnesota. And that would be one of those, like, didn't put up a ton of stats, but, played the most special teams plays. Think about the big plays he made, the hits, the fumbles, the games he's changed by a big hit on special teams. Like Marcus Sherrills. I feel like Marcus Sherrills has to make it at some point, but maybe not. Maybe I'm just too partial to guys I know. But I think maybe CJ Ham. I don't know. Who'd you have?
Quick comparison on Ham versus Kleinsasser, then I'll give you a name. Kleinsasser played 13 years for the Vikings. CJ Ham is going into year number 9. And I think what would hold Ham back is that if you're having these discussions and you're saying, all right, I think let's let a fullback in. It's time. Let's get a fullback in the Ring of Honor. The first guy you're going to do is Kleinsasser, I think. Yeah, because he played longer, because he's a little more revered because of the nostalgia factor. Like, looking back in time, you respect him even more. But I think Ham is an interesting one. I would probably turn to Brian O'Neill right now. I mean, and we're obviously confessing that Justin Jefferson is obvious. Like, Harrison Smith is obvious. Those guys are locks. Going outside the box a little bit, Brian O'Neill, by when it's all said and done, probably a decade or more in purple, high-level tackle play. I think that gets him in pretty easily. What would you say to Brian O'Neill? And then Christian Darrisaw might be not far behind. He just has to play longer.
So are you saying Christian Darrisaw is a lock?
No.
Wow. So you're putting O'Neill over Darrisaw in this conversation.
If their careers ended today, yeah, Darrisaw just hasn't done it long enough. I think you need longevity.
Okay.
True. And I think Brian O'Neill, let's see, this would be year 8 for him, and he's still got a handful more. I think that O'Neill's probably, but can we make him a package deal? Can we unveil the banner and have them both on it next to each other? And have we ever done that
with JJ McCarthy's Super Bowl ring? Is that the thought? They protected McCarthy for 4 years, and they come out together. Yeah, I guess so. You know what? And that's the problem with me. I'm looking at like star power versus what you're saying. You're right. Purple Ring of Honor is about longevity. It's about doing it the longest. You know what?
I don't know if CJ Ham has star power.
No, and you're right. I mean, he has fan favorite power. They love him. Yeah. But here's one. Here's one.
Okay.
The kicker. I feel like the kicker, if he were to stick around long enough, Will Reichert.
Yep.
If he sticks around long enough, because he had a great rookie year. If he sticks around and is consistent like this for the next 10 years, I think Will Reichert's in there. Because is Gary Anderson wasn't here long, was he?
He wasn't here. Well, let me check that. There is no kicker in the Ring of Honor. I just checked that as well.
Okay.
Gary Anderson, he played forever, but not all for the Vikings. Let's see. he played for the Vikings for only 5 years. Now, he wouldn't be I don't think he'd be a candidate.
Okay. Yeah. So Will Riker would need 10 years. He needs 10 years as a Viking. And I hope he can break this curse of like great, fall off the table. Vikings ruin the kicker because of their fans, like, or whatever. The pressure of being in purple kicking. I don't know if there's extra weight in the white pants when you're a Viking or something, and it just makes your leg go wonky at some point. And Will Riker did get injured this year, so hopefully that's not like a trend where every year he's going to come up lame or something or be hurt. Maybe he needs to get on. I forgot the kicker, but the workout plan. But not too, because who was the kicker who got super strong and got terrible? Was that the Vikings kicker? Yeah.
Blair Walsh, yep.
Yeah, start working out too much. Like, yeah, hopefully he doesn't do that, because like you don't need to be a powerhouse. But yeah, I could see the kicker, Will Riker. Like I could see that if he 10 years in purple. Again, I think it's going to be predicated on big games, big kicks, big moments. But this year he stood the test of time. Alabama, he's played big games already, made big kicks already. If anybody can stand up to the media pressure of football, it's an Alabama player. And that's why I got to go with him. But we got to jump into this daily three. It's going to be 3 questions. We have time today, so 3 minutes each. We'll be back after a quick word from our sponsors. Also, just remember, make sure you please subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota on YouTube. Also, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, whatever it is, iHeartMedia app, you can find Locked On Sports Minnesota. Just always subscribe, because then our podcast will pop up whenever we're live. And again, as this season kicks off, as JJ McCarthy gets named, we are going to get hotter and hotter and hotter. We're going to have more and more guests. Our plans are to have Jordan Reed, ESPN draft analyst. We're trying to get Jim Kleinsaucer now that I bought him up. Now I got to reach out to him because I never thought about having him on, but that would be a good one to talk about CJ Ham and the Purple Ring of Honor. And why isn't he in the Purple Ring of Honor? Got to get him on here to talk about that. But Daily Three's coming up now. We got 3 questions, about 3 minutes each. Take it away, Sam.
All right. Epic, historic Wolves comeback last night, Ron. They beat OKC on the second half of the back-to-back. No Rudy, no Randall, no DiVincenzo. Ant had a bad calf. Naz Reid and Jalen Clark were banged up. They still got it done. They were down 24 points in the fourth quarter, Ron, and they won in overtime. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so here's the thing. I get the scores. Like I'll tune in when they're on, TV. I'll try to watch some of the .com stuff when they post it, when people have it going. I'm starting to see now, I think like Disney Plus or somebody's running games too when they come on. I forgot which app I was on when I was in Mexico. The game popped up saying I could watch it live, so I watched a little bit. The Timberwolves are in a predicament, Sam. They play really, really good when nobody expects them to, and they do things that are not expected to. And then they don't like follow up with like greatness. Like, I don't know. Again, I don't like, and you tell me if I'm wrong about this. I feel like Julius Randle and this team has kind of disappeared from the spotlight. Like, it feels like Julius Randle made Ant like less of a star. Like, and maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm mad at like not being top 3, because that's what they were, top 4. Lakers are top 4. They were top 4 without Luka. They added Luka, and now they're kind of steady in that spot. LeBron, Luka is like gonna get comfortable eventually, and just like JJ, what is his name? What's the coach's name? JJ
Redick.
Redick. I was about to say Redding. As I was gonna say JJ McCarthy. But JJ Redick said he wants Luka to have a blackout moment where he just is screaming and shooting and having fun. It's coming. You got to get comfortable around guys. But the Timberwolves, Sam, I don't know. I just feel like they've dropped off from like the world stage of like Ant is a star. They are looking really, really good right now. So the way it sits, they would have to play the Kings and the Mavs play the Warriors for the play-in, right? Is that how it works?
Who's number 8?
Mavericks are 8. Timberwolves play 8 to figure out who drops down to 7 or 8. And then the winner of 9-10 plays 8.
Yep.
At that moment. Yep, you're right. I forgot. I thought it was 7 plays 10, 8 plays 9, and those winners play. But you're right. So they'd have to play the Mavs right now, which could be good or bad. Mavs are getting better. Kyrie is now the majority ball handler. But Anthony Davis is out, right? He's still out. now because he
They've
got
got
hurt.
all their bigs are hurt right now. So
Yeah.
I don't know if
So-
they get healthy, that'd be scary. I don't know.
And that's the
if they'll
thing.
be
Yeah, later in the
healthy.
season, you got 50-ish games. So what do you have? 30-something games left. Could AD get healthy? I don't think so. I think Anthony Davis is just going to be out the rest of the season. Like he's going to I just saw a thing about Joel Embiid too, that he's made $125 million sitting on the bench. He's been out for 400 games in his career, and he's played 425. That's nuts.
Yeah.
Half of his money has come from sitting on the bench. That's nuts. Talk about like having to give money back. Oh my goodness. But I don't know. I think it was a great win. I always say this. I hope that is something to build on. But I just don't know if you can live on a prayer like that. I don't know if you can have comeback games like that and just like I feel like after a game like that, and I always say that the next game becomes like after doing all, like, man, you see that win? You see what they did to the Thunder? And then they come up against the Lakers on Thursday, and it's like, wait, what? They just let Luka put up 40? And so we'll see what happens on Thursday. We'll see what happens with the Jazz on Friday. And then they got the Suns on Sunday. That's a tough stretch of games. Jazz, not so much, but Lakers, Suns, that's a tough stretch within that little small 3-game window. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think the Wolves have a predicament of they're going to have too many cooks in the kitchen here. Once everybody gets healthy, then they're going to have to figure out their new rotation, because in the absence of Dante and Julius, a bunch of young guys have stepped up. Terrence Shannon is really good. Jalen Clark is a critical defender now. So who is going to not play? I don't know how they do. I don't know how they do it unless they go 10, 11 deep. I'm not sure how you put this rotation back together. I don't want to take a second away from Jalen Clark or Terrence Shannon. They're super valuable, young, energetic players that are making this team much more fun to watch and a lot faster in transition. So I don't love this. I'm actually not looking forward to Julius coming back really at all. Dante, I'm a little bit more, but that's where I'm at with Julius. I mean, yeah, he'll score a little bit, but I think he's blocking more interesting and productive young players. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, and that's the tough thing about like figuring out what's next. Like Julius Randle, like is Tim Connelly regretting what he did? I would probably say yes, because I think with karl-Anthony Towns, they probably are right where they were before, which is 4 or 5 seed. The way this league is playing right now, karl-Anthony Towns seems to continue to get better. I know it's one of those things like, can we get over the hump? And I was a part of it. Like they got to get over. They need somebody to get them over the hump. It wasn't Julius Randle. I never realized how bad Julius Randle really was as far as like just deflating a team. Because he gets the ball and he doesn't want to let go of it, and he thinks it has to be his shot. I don't know why, but I just don't like it. What you got next?
Yeah, I'm wondering if you caught 4 Nations fever when you were down in Mexico, and did you like the international element to their All-Star break? Do you think that could translate to other sports?
Yes. So I didn't know what was going on. I knew Canada was playing USA. That's the only thing I knew. I didn't know about the other 2 teams. And the reason is because the resort was empty. The beach was empty right around like 5, 6 o'clock, because I think everybody was heading out to go to their restaurants to watch the games. A lot of the like restaurants, bars had like the TVs up, Senior Frogs. It was packed. And I had no idea why. Like I was literally. And so when we went to the restaurant we were going to go to, Sam, all the seats inside were packed. They had TVs outside for the people. I mean, most Mexico restaurants anyway are open anyway to be outside, inside, but on the streets, like on the sidewalk, Sam, it was like you had to scooch by people and you're just trying to walk to the next place. Like you're just trying to go to the jewelry store, the liquor store. Like there were tables all around the street on the sidewalks with giant sheets with projectors playing the game. And then I heard like the national anthem of Canada, the U.S. national anthem. There's a lot of Canadians that go to Mexico anyway for the snowbirds is what they're called. So it was a huge. Who won, by the way? Sorry, I didn't even know who won. Did Canada win?
In overtime.
Okay,
broke our hearts.
And so I do like it because the way, like when I looked at the way all those people on vacation were like, I don't care about my vacation, because vacation sometimes the way we missed so much TV, which is fine. Like I didn't miss emails. I didn't miss TV. Like it wasn't like I was getting back to the room every night. Like, oh, we got to watch something. Like me and my wife, like before the kids would go to bed or while the kids were up doing something, we would just maybe watch something on Netflix, but it wasn't like we have to watch something, it was just like background noise or let's have something on. And then we were pretty much just exhausted from this heat. You forget how much draining the sun and the sand is, because you're playing beach volleyball all day. But yes, I love the format. I think the NBA, because their NBA All-Star game was horrible in my opinion. It's getting worse. I think they need to come up with, so I don't know if they need to do like rising stars versus rookies versus or freshmen versus sophomores, and then maybe upperclassmen, and then maybe I don't know, like if they can come up with something like that where like the freshmen play the seniors and then the sophomores play the middle and then those two play each other. Like they have to come up with something, because you could do the first 4 games on one day, the 2 games, 4 teams play, and then the next day the winners play each other in the final All-Star game. And you can mix in the dunk contest, but it's just, I don't know. I did not like this. Like, I think it was like pickup basketball based, and they played a bunch of pickup basketball games. It was horrible. It was terrible. Yeah. So I could see that. I don't know how you do it. I don't know, because like I don't think there's enough international players. Like they used to do that though. It was USA versus the world, and that used to be part of the All-Star game. They stopped doing that. So I don't know. They have to come up with something though for the NBA.
I feel like US versus the world does make some sense if you have buy-in. And I think you got to have a cash prize. I mean, we saw with the play-in tournament, right?
Correct.
There's money on the line, guys try. So if the prize is $500,000 per man, and you've got, the U.S., the gold medal winners in every Olympics, basically going against Jokic, Giannis, SGA, all the same team. Like if you get the joining
Joel
forces
Embiid,
beat the U.S. Embiid, who probably would have a knee problem or something. That I think could be compelling if you can create stakes that the guys care about.
Yeah, it would have to be something. Yeah, U.S. versus the world. Like you got to do something like that where you get Jokic and what's his name? The guy just went to the Lakers. Why do I keep Luka? Like Yuka and Joker together with Giannis and Embiid, because Embiid can play both. Like we know that he can choose, but put him on the international for this. Yeah, he probably would have a knee problem. But yeah, that would be like even Kyrie, because somebody said Kyrie is petitioning to like, isn't he trying to play for a different country or something? Or like he's petitioning.
Oh,
I think that came up. Like Kyrie was petitioning for like the 2028 Olympics to play for a different country. I forgot where, because I think his dad or somebody has international ties. So somebody brought that up that Kyrie was looking into that. I think it was Kyrie. I know there's a player that's looking into playing for a different country for 2028. But yeah, I could easily see that being something for the USA. But yeah, they have to do a better format. But I love the hockey. Like I think the hockey, like watching, I'm not a big hockey guy, you know that, but watching the people in Mexico gravitate and like fill up every restaurant just to watch the game, that was crazy. What you got in that? What's the last one?
Yeah. Lastly, we're starting to see veteran cuts trickling in around the league. The Bears cut a couple guys. The Browns cut Sheldon Rankins. Curious, Ron, if you think there are any Vikings that could be cut this week before the start of free agency.
The only one I could see is probably Ed Ingram. Like if they are truly, because the bench him for Reisner, maybe they are truly done with him. Like they just don't feel like it's going to work out for him. That's the only one I could see. I think Bradbury is fine. Like it's tough to find a center. Bradbury also I think could play guard if you really wanted to. Like maybe they find a center in the draft they really, really like, and they say, Bradbury, you're gonna be our guard, and then if it doesn't work, you're gonna be our backup guard. Like I could see. I think they like Bradbury over Ingram, and so I could see Ingram getting cut. I don't know. Do you see one?
I think Ingram would make a lot of sense to cut. I'm curious about Josh Oliver. I think it represents a decent amount of savings if they do make that move, but he's your tight end too, right? I mean, I think that's a valuable position in KOC's scheme. So I think he would actually stay on board. I'm probably looking at one of those linemen, probably Bradbury or Ingram. I think one of them will get cut, but does it happen now or does it happen after training camp on cut day? That could be when the move gets made. Maybe it's not right now.
Yeah, Sam, and when you cut players, I mean, we all know this. You don't cut players unless you have other players in mind to bring in, unless you're the New York Giants. I mean, they cut Daniel Jones and they had no idea what they were going to do next. But the plan is always, if we know there's a guy we can get, because the conversations are going to be had this week at the Combine. Pro days are a big one as well, because those GMs get to be able to be out at the pro days. You'll have former players, because I'm going to go to the Gophers, even though I'm not on anybody's roster, but you'll have former players to show up to the pro days as well, because they want to be seen and have a chance to talk to some of these teams too. It's always this little cat and mouse game, but nobody knows what the Minnesota Vikings are going to do but the Minnesota Vikings right now, at least. until we start to get all the rumors, and then the rumor mill begins and the players start to get put where we think they're going to go. But I'm Ron Johnson at Sam Extra. This has been the Ron Johnson Show. I want to thank you guys, the everydayers. Seriously, we are so thankful that you guys continue to watch us every day and tune in. Please tell a friend to tell a friend, pass it on. Make sure you guys share our content on Instagram, Twitter, whatever you use. But make sure you guys subscribe on YouTube. And I'm Ron Johnson at Sam Extra. Thank you and have a great week.